The little girl stood alone at the edge of the crowded city park, clutching a torn backpack with both hands as if it contained the last pieces of her world. Her cheeks were stained with tears, but she wasn't crying anymore. Sometimes pain grows so deep that tears simply stop coming. People walked past her without slowing down, their eyes fixed on their own busy lives, never noticing the silent storm happening only a few feet away. When our eyes finally met, she whispered 5 words that would forever change both of our lives. I have nowhere left to go. Those words didn't sound like a cry for help. They sounded like someone who had already given up believing anyone would answer. Without thinking, without planning, and without realizing how much those simple words would cost and reward me, I looked into her frightened eyes and quietly replied, "Then stay with me." If you believe kindness can change someone's life forever, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, share this story with someone who still believes in second chances, and subscribe to Heartline Stories for more emotional journeys that remind us humanity is still alive. At that time, my name was Rowan Mercer, a 38-year-old carpenter living alone in a modest house at the edge of Willow Creek. My life had become painfully predictable after losing my wife, Mara, to a sudden illness 3 years earlier. We had dreamed of filling our home with children's laughter, but life had written a different ending. Since her passing, silence had become my closest companion. Every morning I woke before sunrise, worked until evening repairing old furniture and building custom cabinets, then returned home to a dining table with only one plate. Friends tried convincing me to move on, but grief isn't something people simply leave behind. It settles quietly into every room of your heart until one unexpected moment reminds you that even broken hearts can still make room for someone else. The girl looked no older than 11. Her clothes were clean but worn beyond repair, and her shoes had several holes carefully hidden beneath pieces of tape. She introduced herself as Kaia. She spoke politely, almost too politely, the way children do after life teaches them that making mistakes often comes with consequences far greater than they deserve. She explained that her grandmother, the only person who had raised her, had passed away 2 weeks earlier. Since then, distant relatives argued over property but never over who would care for her. Temporary shelters had become temporary prisons where she constantly feared being forgotten forever. Earlier that morning, after overhearing workers discussing another transfer to a larger facility in another city, she quietly slipped away. I knew helping her wasn't as simple as opening my front door. Authorities would have questions. Neighbors would gossip. There would be paperwork, interviews, inspections, and countless reasons why someone like me shouldn't become responsible for a frightened child I had met only hours earlier. Yet every logical thought disappeared whenever I remembered the hopeless expression on her face. Some people enter our lives because destiny politely knocks. Others arrive because destiny kicks the door open without asking permission. The first evening inside my house felt strangely unfamiliar. Kaia stood near the entrance for several minutes, unsure whether she was actually allowed to step farther inside. She looked at the family photographs hanging on the wall, especially the picture of Mara smiling beneath the old maple tree in our backyard. She quietly asked if the woman in the photo had been kind. I nodded. She smiled faintly and whispered that the house already felt kinder because her picture was still watching over it. Those words nearly broke me. Over the following days, small routines slowly replaced awkward silence. I cooked breakfast while Kaia insisted on washing dishes. She helped organize my workshop after school registration paperwork began moving through local services. Every evening she completed homework at the kitchen table while I sanded wood nearby. The house slowly transformed. Empty rooms began carrying echoes of laughter again. Forgotten corners filled with books, colored pencils, and hopeful conversations about tomorrow instead of painful memories of yesterday. Still, not everyone welcomed the change. Some neighbors quietly questioned my intentions. Others openly suggested that a single man had no business raising a young girl who wasn't related to him. Rumors spread faster than truth ever could. One afternoon someone anonymously reported concerns to Child Protective Services. 2 investigators visited the house. They examined every room, interviewed both of us separately, reviewed financial records, employment history, and even spoke with teachers who had only recently met Kaia. I answered every question honestly because truth doesn't require rehearsals. Those weeks became emotionally exhausting. Kaia feared every knock on the door. Each official envelope arriving in the mailbox caused her hands to shake. She secretly packed her backpack every night, convinced someone would eventually take her away. One evening I discovered the bag hidden beneath her bed, already filled with folded clothes, her school notebook, and a small framed picture of Mara that she had quietly borrowed from the living room. She wasn't preparing to leave because she wanted to. She was preparing because life had taught her never to unpack completely. I gently returned the backpack to the closet and promised her something I prayed I could keep. No matter how difficult the process became, I would never stop fighting for her future. Months passed. The legal process continued with countless meetings, home evaluations, counseling sessions, and court appearances. During that time, Kaia blossomed in remarkable ways. Teachers noticed dramatic improvements in her confidence. She joined the school's art club, where her paintings often featured warm little houses surrounded by giant trees and bright skies. When asked why she always painted the same home, she simply answered that safe places deserve to be remembered. One rainy afternoon I received a phone call from the hospital. An elderly volunteer named Mrs. Bell wanted to speak with me regarding Kaia's grandmother. Before passing away, her grandmother had left behind several handwritten journals addressed specifically to whoever eventually cared for her granddaughter. When I opened the weathered notebooks that evening, every page overflowed with love. Her grandmother described Kaia as brave beyond her years, endlessly curious, and determined to protect others even while carrying her own pain. Near the final pages, one sentence made me stop reading altogether. She had written that she prayed someone would eventually love Kaia not because they had to, but because they chose to. I couldn't continue reading through the tears. That night I quietly placed the journals inside Kaia's room. Hours later she came into the living room carrying them against her chest. She didn't speak. She simply hugged me longer than ever before. Sometimes gratitude has no vocabulary. As winter approached, financial challenges arrived unexpectedly. A major construction company canceled several contracts, reducing my income dramatically. Bills piled up faster than furniture orders. I considered selling the house to stay afloat, but doing so would once again force Kaia to lose the only stable home she had ever known. Without mentioning anything to her, I began working overnight repairing antique furniture for collectors in nearby towns. Eventually she noticed the dark circles beneath my eyes and the growing stack of unpaid invoices hidden inside desk drawers. Children often understand far more than adults realize. One Saturday morning I found Kaia selling handmade greeting cards outside the local farmers market. Every card featured hand-painted flowers and encouraging messages. She smiled proudly while explaining that she wanted to help pay electricity bills because homes need lights to stay hopeful. My heart shattered and healed at exactly the same time. News of her kindness quietly spread throughout Willow Creek. Customers began purchasing dozens of her handmade cards. Local businesses displayed them near checkout counters. A newspaper published a small article about the young artist raising money for the man who had given her a family instead of simply a place to sleep. The article reached people far beyond our town. Letters began arriving daily. Some contained encouraging words. Others included small donations. One retired teacher mailed an entire box of children's books. A widowed baker delivered fresh bread every Friday without accepting payment. Volunteers helped repair my aging workshop roof. One anonymous envelope simply contained a note saying that kindness always returns home eventually. For the first time in years, I realized that compassion can spread exactly like fear. The only difference is choosing which one we pass to the next person. Nearly a year after meeting Kaia, the final adoption hearing finally arrived. The courtroom felt strangely quiet. Every document had been reviewed. Every interview completed. Every concern investigated. The judge spent several minutes reading reports praising Kaia's progress, her academic improvement, emotional stability, and our healthy home environment. Then came the moment neither of us would ever forget. The judge asked Kaia one final question. If given the choice, where would she want to live? She stood slowly, took a deep breath, and answered with remarkable courage. She said, home isn't the place where you're born. Home is the place where someone looks at your worst day and still chooses you anyway. There wasn't a dry eye anywhere inside that courtroom. The judge smiled gently before approving the adoption. Legally, officially, and forever, we became family. Walking outside beneath the bright afternoon sun, Kaia reached for my hand without hesitation. For the first time since meeting her, there was no fear in her eyes. Only peace. Life didn't suddenly become perfect afterward. We still faced ordinary struggles. School exams created stress. Business remained unpredictable. Some days grief returned unexpectedly whenever I remembered Mara. But something had fundamentally changed. Our house no longer echoed with loneliness. Every birthday became a celebration of gratitude instead of another reminder of loss. Every holiday gained fresh traditions. Every ordinary breakfast somehow became extraordinary simply because we shared it together. Years passed quietly. Kaia grew into an exceptional young woman known throughout the community for volunteering at youth shelters, mentoring children entering foster care, and encouraging families considering adoption. She often told frightened children that their story wasn't ending where they thought it was. Sometimes the saddest chapter only exists to prepare readers for the most beautiful one. On the day she graduated from college with honors in social work, she walked across the stage carrying a tiny wooden heart inside her pocket. Years earlier I had carved it from leftover oak in my workshop during one particularly difficult week. On the back I had written 4 simple words. You were always enough. After the ceremony she hugged me tightly and admitted she had carried that little heart through every exam, every interview, and every difficult decision because it reminded her that love doesn't depend on perfection. Standing beneath the same maple tree where Mara's photograph had once been taken, I finally understood something grief had hidden from me for years. Losing someone you love never closes your heart forever. Sometimes it quietly prepares your heart to rescue someone else. If I had ignored the frightened girl standing alone in that park, believing someone else would surely help her, both of us would have continued living incomplete lives. She needed a family. I needed a reason to believe life could begin again. Together, we unknowingly became the answer to each other's prayers. Before we reach the end of this story, please write in the comments, kindness always finds a home. Your words may encourage someone who desperately needs hope today. The greatest miracles rarely arrive with applause or grand announcements. They often begin with one exhausted child whispering that she has nowhere left to go, and one ordinary person quietly answering with a simple invitation that changes 2 lives forever. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a heartfelt comment, share it with someone who believes compassion can still change the world, and subscribe to Heartline Stories. Your support allows us to continue sharing emotional stories that inspire hope, healing, and the courage to choose kindness every single day. Because sometimes, the family we spend our whole lives searching for isn't the one we're born into. It's the one that chooses us when the rest of the world walks away.